Greetings. The episode of 33 North, 96 West that you are about to see or hear is actually the second in a three-part series on the universal principles or universal laws. So, of course, you are welcome to just appreciate this one episode as a standalone, or if you'd like, we recommend clicking back and hearing the first in the series first, so that you receive the full benefit of the conversation. All right, here we go.
Hello, and welcome back to 33 North, 96 West. And today we are continuing our conversation on the 7 laws of the universe, and as we, I think, fondly have called them, more universal principles. It feels a little more in alignment with the language we've been using. And to remind us, we were looking at the 7 laws of the universe according to the ancient Hermetic teachings. Go back to Egypt. There are other cultures that have other universal laws listed, but these are the ones that we have been visiting.
Perhaps we could say different cultures and wisdom traditions have translated the principle in various ways.
Absolutely. And we even alluded to previous podcast on this topic is you can even take those 12, for example, that are in the Hawaiian culture, and you can see the 7 within them. They're just more broken out, translated in a few more laws, if you will, or principles. So I wanted to start with recapping the 2 we've already talked about. And as a reminder, what we were doing is correlating these to the 7 energy centers, 7 main energy centers, or 7 main chakras in the body. So we were starting at the crown and moving down through the body. And another reminder, and then I'm also going to let Jared speak on this for sure, is that the concept behind this really is there's only one universal principle or one universal law, often referred to as law of oneness. But in this dimension of physicality, these teachings have chosen to break them out and correlate them with the energy centers, the 7 main energy centers in the body, because we have many, really more for a way that we can have an understanding of it and a way to observe the energies of each of these principles. So what would you have to add to that? I know we've talked about it in conversation, and it feels like there's more to expand upon on that.
Right. Well, I think you've done a pretty good job at introducing that idea. So basically, if we can understand ourselves as energetic beings, and we can understand ourselves as perceivers, receivers, transistors of energy, then it's easy to move into the space of understanding that these different energy centers in the body, which correlate to your physicality, but also your subtle bodies, your emotional, mental, etheric bodies. These energy centers are indicating your attunement or your alignment to something. And I think we'll get a little bit more into questioning that as this episode continues and evolves. Like, by checking in with each of these centers and through your awareness of the relationship of that center to the universal principle, you develop or cultivate a higher capacity to discern your alignment or misalignment.
Yes. Yes.
Is that a good way to elaborate on what you introduced?
Absolutely. And of course, as we've mentioned before in the last episode, this all ties to all of our previous episodes. The words we've used, the language we've used, the energy we've talked about, and the concepts. So this feels like a way of pulling it all together through something that is a little more discernible and tangible. So
Definitely.
yes, I like definitely how you phrased that for sure. And it also, like I said, ties back to previous conversations. I do want to give a little disclaimer that there is so much amazing information to this that I have taken notes. So there may be times I'm going to refer to some notes here because I don't want to leave anything out that I think is really important and imperative. And also, it's an additional layer to what we already do. We talk about the same principles or concepts, if you will, the same principles. We'll just go with that. But we are each giving our own perspective. And this feels like an additional third perspective. And rather than it being one individual's perspective, it's a culmination of things I've read, learned, been exposed to, all of that over the years, as far as what my notes cover. And then, of course, we will each discuss it and give our perspective.
And I'm going to distill down a little bit into a colloquialism that I think works and serves us really well in this moment. If it isn't broken, we don't need to fix it. So if the ancient Hermetic principles help us to understand the energy centers in the body and their relationship with universal principles, we don't need to reinvent the wheel and come up with a new way of understanding it. But basically, we're attuning to, you and I are both attuning to the same idea, the same truth with a capital T, and then celebrating how each of us has come to validate or confirm in our lives.
That feels absolutely beautiful. Yes. Truth with a capital T.
Yeah.
in my experience, that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I asked in a previous episode, maybe one of the last two, we were talking about the ideas of personal truths, opinions of truths versus universal truth or universal principle. And isn't it interesting how the conversation has evolved now to the universal principles with a capital T, universal truth? That's where we are.
Absolutely. So the first one, again, I'm going to first recap and take us back to what we already discussed, because we're tying all of these in together. So I think that's very important to recap. And we may say things in a different way or additional things that we didn't cover last time, because last time we did quite a bit of discussion on just these concepts in general, or these principles. So the first one's mentalism, and that's in the crown chakra. And that is the principle that everything that you live is what you believe. Another way to say that, everything you experience is what you are thinking. And I want to add something that I don't believe I said, and at least not in this way last time, is that the mind is something that you have to become. And that's where we're talking about, you hear the phrases all the time of we're becoming ourself, we're becoming our essence. There's always, I don't want to say always, but there's often references to our becoming. And that really is, the mind is something we are becoming, and it's a vibration of what we are. So I'll say one more thing on that, and then we can discuss it. If we are in a wave, and I'll just kind of jump ahead and say that everything we're talking about here is really going to have to do with this wave. We're going to talk about these as waves, this energy. So if we are in a wave of wanting or needing, then our experience is going to be of wanting and needing. And that alone could be a very in-depth conversation. But I just wanted to point that out and see what we have to add to that I don't know. We did allude to it in the previous episode. Do we have anything else we want to share on that?
Yes, I'm wanting to go really big and really broad for just a moment with mentalism and maybe provoke. Does anything exist in the universe that wasn't first idea?
Rather than answering, I was getting something very clearly this morning. I want to interject here.
Okay.
It is connected. It became very clear to me that in Jared's asking of these questions during each episode, my understanding is that he is asking, can these universal principles not be so? So that's why I'm smiling so big, because you're validating. It's another way of saying, are any of us exempt from these?
It is exactly that.
Right.
But there's another layer to it specifically here, which is you may understand yourself as you're having this life experience and others. You may understand yourself as having first been an idea in the mind of Source.
Yes.
So the physical life experience that you're living and the vessel that you are inhabiting and the etheric body that you hold was an idea in the mind of the universe. And the idea precedes the manifestation. Mm-hmm. And this is the principle that is expressed through the idea of mentalism at every fractal level of our universe, of your experience. Everything is first idea that then becomes manifest, either through industry, effort, or alignment. So some people say, well, I want to build a house. Well, you have to physically do that. Like, I'm going to use my muscles to build a house. So I have an idea for a house. I'm going to go physically make it so. That works fine. I love to use my physical body to do things. Has that always been the only way to build things? In past civilizations, did we sing stones into assembly?
Yes.
So I just wanted to put that into the conversation, the reference between your mind as a sovereign being here in this life experience and Source mind. Mm-hmm. You're an idea of Source mind. It became manifest. Now we are here. We get to have ideas, the thrill of ideas, and then we get to observe their manifestation. It's just a fractal. It's the same phenomenon, the same universal principle occurring at all these different levels. Level, is that the right word? I don't know.
Well, for sake and purpose of this, we'll say yes.
God made you manifest, and now you make things manifest. And he is co-creating and co-celebrating in that experience with you now and always. It, he, she, they. It's a co-cooperative manifestational thing, and it's all based on mind and ideas.
And the spirit of the idea that is you is having these experiences to understand itself.
Yes.
And so I wanted to bring that in because that's a common teaching out there, if you will. You know, you're here for God, Source, Creator, Spirit, to gain an understanding of what that is. And and I like that you brought in the idea. And so the spirit of the idea that is us individually is having experiences to gain understanding of that manifestation in physical form.
Yes, this is a very good place to learn.
Yes. Learning, like one of the things that I came across in doing, kind of revisiting all of this, I guess I'll just simply say it. We are spirit learning from itself. We are the idea learning from itself, if that's a good way to put it.
It is a good way to put it.
Learning to gain an understanding. Yes.
We're the teacher and the student. We're the giver and the receiver.
And we are different, each perhaps a different idea, a different blueprint. Our essence is unique and individual from others, so that we do have a broader perspective. Let me say that a different way. We have various perspectives that broaden our understanding.
Variety is the spice of the universe.
Yes, yes. And then, of course, that leads us to our second universal principle or the law of correspondence, which is in our in the physical center in our third eye, in our brow chakra. And I do feel we talked about this one even more last time than we did mentalism. So I think it was really good that we went deeper into the mentalism of it. And the law of correspondence, as a reminder, is you are outside what you are within. And I'm gonna tie this to a wonderful phrase that Jared uses, but what is outpictured is what you are within. What you are within is outpictured. There's not a separation between those two. So I am also tying this to previous conversations we've had where you've talked about what we claim or what we declare. So what we claim or what we declare. Yes. Go ahead. I see
Were you finished?
I see the light. No, you're going to say it. You're going to say it. I see and feel the light of.
Yeah.
Enlightenment.
So there's the idea that there is a correspondence, that we are in relationship with everything that we see.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're getting at is the quality or character of that relationship may also be claimed by you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. So again, that is the law of correspondence. If we are having an experience that is not desirable or favorable to us, we can look at what is outpictured, and what that will tell us, what are we claiming? Yeah. What are we claiming? So,
well,
yeah.
And you said both ways. So I'm going to provoke and prod a little bit here. Let's say I'm having discord or disagreement with someone, and they have claims upon me.
They have claims upon you. Okay.
They have expectations of me or ideas for how I should present. Let me just say we both have that for each other. I would like to say that I am that I have transcended that, but sometimes I still catch myself having desires of others. I want you to be this thing for me, or I want you to do this thing for me. So I'm claiming that in the relationship, and then them upon me as well. But as I become aware of my alignment through correspondence, through my awareness of correspondence, through this awareness of this principle, do I have the capacity, the ability, the right, the privilege to release others' claims upon me?
Yes.
Do I have the right, the privilege, the honor, the capacity, the ability to release my claims upon others?
Yes.
And allow them to present the truth of who they are, regardless of outcome. Isn't that delicious?
It is. And I would like to kind of expand also that you said to allow them to reveal or show you the truth of who they are. There's a whole nother element that comes in is often discord can come in because we recognize that they are not being truly who they are. And that can go either way. Somebody may see that in us as well. In other words, again, being the observer, we can not only see this law of correspondence for self, but in others. Are they, okay, so that's what they're out picturing, but this is what they're saying. There's some discord there. Are they really in alignment with their truth, or are they just not seeing the fullness of it? And we ask that same question of ourselves, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that is what discord is we're not seeing aspects of ourselves fully, and we're not seeing aspects of others.
Yeah.
If that.
It absolutely.
Yeah. So it aligns with what you're saying is correct. I'm not exempt from, I've done a tremendous amount of work over the years on expectation to the point that I don't even have an understanding or recall of the relationship I used to have with it, if that makes sense, because it was so extreme. And I sometimes have to kind of go back in and say, wow, I've done a lot of work on that. But as a human, am I completely exempt from having expectations? Of course not. And I'll use an example that just happened a few days ago. Is I had an experience with somebody where we were, triggers happened to past traumas, and let's see how I want to say this. I was verbally attacked and criticized when really what was being outpictured is their own core wounds and their core fears and core beliefs. But before I was able to fully recognize that, of course, then there's also a trigger to mine. And so we separated for just a moment, regrouped, because we're both very self-responsible, self-aware people who recognize very quickly we've got a dynamic going on here where neither one of us are fully being self-realized in this moment. So I came back and made a very clear, I declared a very clear boundary. And so, is that an expectation of how I'm going to be treated? Absolutely. And it's very important to me. I don't associate that in a negative way of that's an unrealistic expectation. But demeaning me or diminishing me is not acceptable. So we're not going to go there, if that makes sense. So expectations can be a very healthy thing for us as a mirror for us to see, are we really in alignment with our truth? Are we really fully observing ourselves? Even though one of these principles is going to tie stronger into the mirror effect, I think this is a place to also kind of lightly visit it because it's tying to what you're saying. We really are a mirror for each other. That's what law of correspondence is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and as we've suggested before, we may know ourselves as unified and as not separate from one another or source or the landscape that we inhabit. So when you're in these encounters with others and you are checking in with your third eye to discern your correspondence, inner to outer, what you can say is you're really checking in with yourself outpictured.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
Nothing you're observing outside of you isn't also present within you.
Right.
So, and then you discern what what quality of relationship do I wish to claim in this moment based upon what I've discerned?
Absolutely.
And so what you just said was, and I've had similar circumstances where something catches me off guard in a relationship, to follow with your example. And it gives me pause. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't, it kind of hit me out of left field, but I really have to check in with myself. And I've come to conclusions that although in some cases it may be easier for me to pacify or be complacent or to acquiesce to whatever the situation is, to really be in alignment and authentic with myself, I had to respond, this is not what I wish to mean to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wonderful way of saying it.
Yeah. This is, like you said, let's take a break here. Let's get back to who we are. Let's So beautiful. Sometimes those boundaries are a part of our experience.
They are. And I want to say that the more we are in coherence or in alignment with these, which we've already said we're going to get to in this conversation, but with higher self, we'll just say that at this point, what we'll dive into that a little more here in the conversation. However, the easier, of course, that practice is. So rather than it maybe being, I have a clear boundary, I'm going to declare it, and I'm going to walk away, this is how it's going to be, it does become an interaction or an exchange. And it was, I understand where you are and what you're going through. I have compassion for that. And the last thing I want to do is take away your experience of witnessing self. So by me creating a boundary, I am not putting a halt and a stop to this, but I am saying this is the limit of where we will go in this experience or exchange or conversation. But if we can stay within what is comfortable and healthy for my alignment, then we can entertain that. And then the other person can do the same thing. Okay, your statement of that or your energy around that was also beyond my boundary, so to speak. So if we are really being mindful of these experiences, we can do it in a manner that doesn't have to be in such resistance or so abrupt. Now, if the other person doesn't receive that, of course, we'll see. I mean, that's going to go where it's going to go, but there are those opportunities for growth and expansion within both of us.
Yes. And if you do this level of work, it becomes a natural part of your process to release more and more projection, expectations, design upon others. So the whole process becomes easy as we all become more and more aware and mature in these ways.
So now we are at the throat chakra, and that is the universal law of vibration. Yes. Vibration. And everything, I say everything, I'm going to also say meaning energy, but everything is energy and energy is everything. So everything is connected with vibration. And sound creates, I'm going now back to what I talked about, the waves. Sound creates waves of vibration. So that's where the waves come in that I was referring to. And by the sound of the waves, then the correspondence we just referenced is created. And if I feel like I'm jumping ahead, but let me go ahead and kind of follow my notes and we'll lead into where we're going on this, is that if the vibration is a lower vibration, then the result will be lower experiences in our physical reality. Whereas if the vibration is higher, then we're going to have higher experiences. So what we are vibrating is what we are resounding into the universe, which again ties to the law of correspondence. So these are, so you begin to see these are all connected and not separate, going back to they're all one, but we are separating them for the purpose of, I say we, of course, we're following the ancient teachings, so that we can have a more tangible understanding of it. But where I was going with all that is what you speak, what you vibrate out, what you say is what you create. And the energy with that is also going to be connected to what's going to correspond back. So the energy behind how you pronounce the words, the word usage, the intention behind what you're saying, all of that is going to be a part of what is vibrating out. And something that I came across that I thought was really, it took me kind of down a rabbit hole of looking at the etymology and the history and all of that of this word. The etymology of verb, V-E-R-B, is word, which in our language, verb is action. So this is actually the first wave expressed. I want to say that a different way. It's the first, for lack of a better word, it's the first thing that exists in the aspect of form in creation. So Jared talked earlier about the idea, and I want us to dive more into that and the idea and how that connects to vibration. So what would you like to add on that?
So I think we go to Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God.
Mm.
So I think we can define the word, as the energy of the Creator in action.
Mm-hmm.
And it has become manifest as all the ideas and all of us and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think of it in terms of physics, the word is literally the energy of the Creator in action on the waves.
In the way, yeah.
So everything was spoken into manifestation by the Creator. It's a way of understanding that action. And now we are creators.
Mm-hmm.
And we have developed this larynx. We can vibrate energy and tone, and the energy emanates from us. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It really is beautiful.
Yeah. I'm reminded, actually, I can ground this in a, I'm not going to say it's a quote from Maya Angelou, but I remember Maya Angelou is one of the luminaries that I've always been drawn to. I'm convinced we're like soul sisters or something. So she was on this beautiful series called Oprah's Masterclass, and I don't know if Oprah still does the Masterclass series, but it was really beautifully photographed, and some of the earlier guests, I mean, really insightful interviews. So Maya Angelou is commenting from her perspective as a teacher, as a poet, on the power of language and words. And she's talking about having a dinner party. And she said, a guest was, I am quoting this part, a guest was issuing racial pejoratives. I just loved how she said that. It was issuing racial pejoratives. So think about the action of issuing from your mouth, from your larynx, a racial pejorative. And so she addressed the camera and she said, so I invited him to leave. And then she spoke to, like, words are things.
Mm-hmm.
and they soak into your wallpaper and into you. Oof. Yeah.
I shuddered, like shivered.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that has been very strong in my awareness for quite some time is when people say, I am enough. And I always invite them, challenge them to explore that. And that's not with just that word. That's with a lot of words. I actually have come to know, and Jared's been a very big part of my journey in understanding this more about myself lately, this beautiful law of correspondence, that is a very much a part of my blueprint and ties to many of the other things about myself that I have known using other languages. Okay, this system describes you as this, and it all ties back to basically me being kind of a translator, but inviting and challenging others to look at their words, including myself, to look at vocabulary. So for example, I'll say to people, do you actually know the definition of enough? Because one of the definitions is to a moderate degree or fairly. So I'll ask people, so are you desiring to be at a moderate degree? Are you desiring to just be fair in your experience as this divine being, this divine human, as the idea that came from source, from God?
Yeah.
It doesn't. So in other words, those vibrations don't even align. To think you're just enough when you actually are an aspect of God, those don't align. So therefore, the rest of the energy center, I don't want to say the rest as in this is only in one energy center, but the energy centers, the experience you're going to have will not be in alignment with maybe what you would want or desire, because you've already declared, you've claimed, I am just enough. I'm not able to be beyond enough. And so that's just an example. This is a whole nother topic too. We could talk about is language. But another thing that's really come strongly into my field that I would like us to discuss further here together and with our audience is that there are charges around every single word that is stated. And that ties back to when I said it's your intention behind what you speak. So if your intention is of maybe a lower vibration or frequency, then the result with the same word that someone over here uses is going to be a different experience. That's something that's really come into my field to look at and explore.
It doesn't even have to, you don't even have to compare it to someone else. I can do it right now. So I'm going to get into some shifting frequencies real quick. No.
Yeah.
You see? It was the same word, two different energies.
And so in my physical vessel, what I felt, the first no, like a dagger in the heart.
Yeah.
It was
attack.
Yeah. Surprised or caught off guard, as you said earlier. Whereas the second one made my head all tingly, made me smile. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
And that is the law of vibration.
Mm-hmm. So there's an emanation and there's a perception, and you're always in vibrational relationship, emanating, receiving, emanating, receiving.
Mm.
So we referred to it. We talked a little bit about it being manifestational, and that's an aspect of it. But it's also on this level of relational.
Mm-hmm.
You've had people in your experience that seem to be unaware of their emissions.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people like us. Let's go back to the empathy episode. I am constantly and acutely aware of everyone's emotional situation. I mean, I didn't even know that growing up, that there was another way to be. You've kind of spoken to that in your experience too. So I'm aware sometimes of people's situation based upon their emission, even when they aren't.
Yes. Which we also brought that into the conversation when we were talking about the exchange with others and what sometimes may lead to, I guess we could call it reconciliation or a collective understanding between the two, or vibrating out of our experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Either bringing ourselves into coherent alignment or recognizing that we're not going to, we no longer wish to accomplish that. We're not going to accomplish that. Maybe later. I think later we'll talk about timing.
Yes.
Actually, that's next, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great lead in.
Yeah.
And also another lead in I want to say is that I heard the statement that creation is in constant vibration, as we've been talking about. And this is actually love, which takes us down into our heart.
Before we leave the throat, there's one more thing that just occurred to me. When I emanate, I'm just going to express this directly. I'm not going to provoke a question or try to lead into it indirectly. When I emanate, my energy joins up with other like energy. So let's say I'm emanating the frequency of love, and you are emanating the frequency of love. Our emanations are of like accord, and they are in coherence with each other. And that progresses the energy of love. And then it is in the field. It emanated from us into our environment, and other energy of love joins up with it. And so you can see like this, you can almost think like the vascular system, or a tree with, the roots and the frequency of that. And so that is true for every, when Terri was speaking to vibrating low. So there's two phenomenon with energy. There's frequency and there's amplitude. So if you are in low vibration, the distance between the zenith and the nadir is further apart. So it's like a sluggish, as opposed to much higher frequency. And then amplitude is the vertical,
expansion of that, or that's not the best word either.
It's like I can be happy or I can be really happy, high amplitude. So, let's connect that with, so fear, despair, hatred, sadness. Those are whoa. And so there's a manifestation of that in your physical life. Like, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't have the energy. I'm drawn to foods that are like that. Like it has effects on all the different aspects of your experience. And then you cross the threshold into things like satisfaction, happiness, joy, ecstasy. Like, that's the upper end of the scale. And then that has an effect on all the different parts of your life. And that signal is emanated. So if a bunch of us are vibrating in fear, we are progressing the energy of fear as a force.
Mm-hmm.
If a lot of us are in the frequency of love, that is the force that we progress.
Yes. And of course, you just described the universal principle of rhythm, which is the heart and where we go to next.